Story 1. The love of my life of 19 years refused to take her schizophrenia medication, and I had to keep the children away from the chaos. Story 2. Nothing in common. She worked nights and I worked days. It was a mutual, friendly divorce. We still talk. Story 3. Not me, but my parents. They divorced after over 30 years of marriage because my father had cancer and did not die. My mother was very upset, and that made her realize just how unhappy she was in the marriage. They should have gotten divorced 20 years earlier, but they stayed miserable for the children. All the children were subsequently miserable too. Story 4. He would not do his part. He would not contribute to household expenses. He would not do any household chores. He just would not. If I am doing everything by myself, I might as well live by myself. So I did. Story 5. It was a long time coming, but two straws broke the camel's back. 1. She woke me up at 6 a.m. to tell me she had signed up to give a talk at a psychoanalytical conference about her affair with her boss that we were trying to work through. She made me make a lasagna for her book club, but I had to pretend she had made it because she would be walking in the door 5 minutes before book club. The second one seems less problematic than the first, but they both highlighted that I was just a prop for her narcissism. Story 6. Our marriage was awful. More than 10 years of severe emotional abuse, gaslighting, and religious trauma. We had stopped having sex 4 years in. I was depressed. He hated how ungodly I had become as I was deconstructing. But we didn't believe in divorce. I was tied to him forever. One day we went to a diner and I asked him to order me a sandwich with a side of onion rings if the waitress came while I went to the bathroom. I tried to break the usual tension by making a joke or being cute. When I came back to the table, he told me he had ordered our food. So I joked about how onion rings must be healthy since they were a vegetable. He told me I was stupid for believing such nonsense. How dumb I was for ordering onion rings. He ranted for 5 minutes about how any idiot who thinks onion rings are healthy should know that the frying process takes out all the nutrients and they are the most unhealthy thing anyone could eat. I sat in silence, defeated, afraid to eat, afraid to annoy him any further. Then the waitress brought out our order. My sandwich with a side of onion rings, and his chicken wrap with a side of onion rings. Something inside me snapped. All I could do was stare at his plate. It was somehow a literal, physical representation of our entire relationship staring me in the face. He ate every last onion ring. It took me a year to set myself up to leave safely, but I got out and never looked back. He remarried 3 months after our divorce was finalized. Took me a solid year before I could even go on a single date again. Story 7. During COVID-19, I stayed home, trying to facilitate electronic learning for elementary-age children. I only left the house twice a month to grocery shop. I was trying to minimize exposure since my then-husband's job still required him to travel. In reality, he was just checking into the nicest hotels in our large city and paying for sex. He also shopped online for expensive art, which was shipped to and displayed in his office. Leisurely lunch hour sex is also frowned upon by employers. He was fired from his job and earned himself a divorce. While wallowing in self-pity, one of his sexcapades involved an undercover police officer in a sting operation, which is a felony in my state. He currently uses his Master of Business Administration degree to deliver sandwiches. Story 8. I kept trying, but finally realized my loyalty to him was not helping me in my own life. So I divorced him and then found out about his girlfriend. Story 9. I got divorced after 9 years. Things had been going well until I started experiencing debilitating migraines that forced me to stop working about 7 years in. The migraines were so severe that I was bedridden most days and even had trouble speaking. The doctors struggled to find anything that could help. It turns out that when faced with the possibility of caring for a disabled partner, she realized that the in sickness and in health part of the vows was not for her. Luckily, just a couple of months after the divorce, a new migraine drug was approved by the Food and Drug Administration. Emgality pretty much eliminated my migraines, reducing them from over 20 days per month to less than 2. It still took another 6 months for me to regain my strength after being bedridden for so long. At that point, I went back to college, earned a degree, landed a fantastic job with a great boss, and when I asked him about potentially moving abroad, he was supportive. Now, I own a house in Japan and have an amazing fiancé who is far more perfect for me. Story 10. We got married and had children really young. After 20 years, the children were grown and gone, and we realized we had nothing in common. It was a very amicable divorce. We still do things with the children on holidays and birthdays. We just found out we were better friends than marriage partners. Story 11. She wanted to be polyamorous. I reluctantly agreed. She refused to do any of the work required to make polyamory successful, and I was discarded. Eventually, she just left. Story 12. Apathy and indifference. My husband never seemed to care what I did. He did not want to spend time with me or do anything with me. He would leave me alone when I was upset rather than try to comfort me. It was literally like I just had a roommate, and we no longer had anything in common. Story 13. She was cheating and had cheated before. This time it was blatant, and her rages at me were cycling back to love bombing, which I couldn't take. Our finances were in trouble. I was working 60 hours a week and paying all the bills while she wrote bad checks all over town. She went to a payday loan company to borrow money to go on a float trip down the Grand Canyon with some friends. One was her boyfriend. His wife found out and stopped him from going. Then I discovered the trip was scheduled for the week of our anniversary. I went to a lawyer and drew up separation papers. I went to the bank and asked them to either give us a suspended payment plan or take possession of the house. I went to counseling. After a 30-day separation, I knew it was over, and I could do much better without her in my life. Story 14. I realized I did not like her. She was the first girl to ever show me any attention, and it took me 20 years to realize I fell in love with that attention. Not her. Could have been anyone. Story 15. She lied about wanting children. She strung me along for 10 years. She told me we were trying when she was taking birth control. She even had me get fertility checked. Her plan was to pretend she could not get pregnant, I guess. She is remarried now, happily, and I am a father of 3. Story 16. My husband could never get over his conservative upbringing, and he thought sex was unpleasant and surrounded by guilt. We did not have sex for 10 years. Story 17. She had to work out of town for a few months, and I realized how miserable I was when she was around. I also got the mail, which she used to receive every day, and discovered the hidden spending she was doing and the massive debt she was accumulating. Then all the lies came out about things going on with her that I should have known about, but I was willing to believe what she told me because I mistakenly trusted her. It was bad. Even my friends and family said I was in a much happier mood when she was gone. Story 18. Her boyfriend became a real issue, especially when she skipped my birthday dinner to spend time with him instead. Story 19. I was married at age 24 and was married for 18 years before I ended the marriage. We had 4 children, and I worked a full-time night job while managing my children's activities on my own. I was also a full-time nursing school student. He spent more and more time away from home, claiming it was necessary to work on the rental properties we owned. Turned out he had an affair. The last straw was when our 2-year-old drowned in our pool while he was supposed to be watching her. I have been divorced for 20 years now, and the children are grown and independent. Leaving with the children was the best decision I could make. Story 20. He fired a rifle in the house. I thought he had shot me. No, he just shot a hole through 3 rooms. He manipulated me and the police who came to investigate, claiming it was an accident. But he continued to play and meditate with firearms shortly thereafter. I finally was done. If I stayed, he was going to kill me. He tried to take out a life insurance policy on me a few months prior. During the divorce, he said he never loved me and got another woman pregnant. I moved into an apartment. He moved her in. The divorce wasn't even final, and he had already planned an extravagant wedding for her. 7 days after our divorce was partially finalized, they got married. He paid for the divorce by forgoing house payments for over a year. That's how he paid for the expensive wedding. The bailiff at the divorce proceedings looked at him as if he was mentally unstable to have filed for this divorce. A perfectly healthy, caring, educated, and decent human being left by a crippled man. I should write a book. Story 21. My parents separated after 25 years and with 4 children because my dad was influenced by Tony Robbins' audiobooks. You can do anything you set your mind to, and worked 70-hour weeks. For years, all he did was come home, pack a new suitcase, and leave in the morning. One day, they had the only fight I ever heard, and he left. Years later, he tried to reconnect with the kids, but by then, we had all moved on from him. Unfortunately, those self-help books did not teach him about family. Story 22. She cheated on me with her first husband while she was married to me. Ironically, he was also married to someone else at the time. Story 23. Just got divorced after 30 years. We had no intimacy, and I am not just talking about sex. Although he did not have much interest in that either. I tried to get him to understand that I needed more than he was willing to give. More energy, more emotion. He was not willing to even try. So I left him and dated someone else for a while who gave me what I was looking for. Now that I know it exists, I am going to keep looking for the real thing. Even if I never find it, at least now I have the opportunity to try. Story 24. She wanted to move on to something else. The worst part is that we were a great team, and we cared for each other very much. However, her priorities shifted, and she became very focused on herself. I hate the person I once loved. I genuinely enjoyed being partnered, and we were best friends. But I have lost confidence in myself, and I am not sure if I can trust another woman. Time heals all wounds, and I hope my faith will be restored because I am definitely trying. It is difficult being alone. Story 25. She went fully manic. I tried to be supportive. Eventually, I had to get a restraining order for the kids and my protection. She ended up in a hospital for a while. After she got out, she still thought the Central Intelligence Agency was after me, that I was a drug smuggler, an online adult film star, and sleeping with every married woman she knew. She filed for divorce, and I let out a sigh of relief as she was stubborn. I figured I would be dead someday and wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. Since then, I have found that I am quite fond of living. I got mostly sober, still drink socially, but only a couple here and there, unlike before when I was drinking a few fifths of bourbon a week alone, and want to continue living a while longer. I have the house and kids. Cost me a small fortune, but it is worth it. Story 26. My spouse changed after 15 years and became angrier. Discovering that Fox News influenced his thinking made him even angrier. I am glad we divorced before Donald Trump took office. Also, he was a terrible roommate. Love is one thing, but if your partner refuses to do their part around the house, it makes the other person tired and resentful. Story 27. Not sure. He told me it was because he did not like my hair or that I sat on the couch after I had been in the garden. Actually, I should have known better. He had been divorced 2 times before for silly reasons as well. Story 28. I wasn't a great partner at the beginning. I leaned on her to handle most of the administrative tasks like school applications and childcare arrangements. To be fair, I was brand new to the United States, so healthcare, insurance, and tax matters were very confusing. And still are, to be honest. I was also venting my frustrations in the wrong places. But I changed. I worked on my faults and stepped up. I did 70% of the childcare, school runs, bedtime routines, and weekend mornings. I was a very involved dad. I took up tennis so we had something to do as a couple, but she wouldn't play with me. And when she saw me play, she only critiqued and criticized, never supported or praised my progress. 10 years and 2 children later, with a completely dead bedroom, she decided to leave. This was last summer, and I'm heartbroken. Every time I look at her, I feel sad. Then she speaks, and I remember how controlling, scornful, and mean she is. Not a single physical touch in years, no hugs, no kisses, no pats on the arm. I used to screenshot anything nice she texted because it was so rare. Now we are amicably separated. I'm lonely but much happier day to day. It just kills me to see how affected my kids are. She told me that we settled and that she never loved me. I didn't settle. I accepted the things that wouldn't change and adored everything else. We live 2 blocks apart and speak every day. We buy extra produce and share. We are friends. But honestly, if we didn't have kids, I'd go back to the United Kingdom. Story 29. She thought she could get more money than she did. She really liked men. She lost. I have custody of our son, and her alimony was only for 5 years at a reduced amount. Story 30. Because of my insecurities, I became very controlling for 17 years. She left me for a better man. I can't blame her. I told her not to blame herself. She did what she had to do to stay sane. I have spent years improving myself. I will try not to make the same mistake twice. My second marriage has lasted over 20 years and is still going strong because of the work I put into myself. Plus, my second wife is very patient and understanding. Takes two. Story 31. My ex-husband's substance abuse issues reached the point where he was frighteningly erratic. One day, he became physically aggressive with me and our 10-year-old son, locked himself in our apartment bedroom, and discharged his handgun. That was my breaking point. That was 12 years ago, and it took several years, but we gradually built a tentative friendship forged on our mutual love for our children. Despite everything, we still rooted for one another. He never stopped struggling with addiction. He passed away from a fentanyl overdose last year on August 28th at age 43. Story 32. He thought he could do better, and he tried. The best thing that ever happened to me. My life is much more fulfilling now. Story 33. Every day I open all the windows, and every day he closes them. Every single day for 14 years. Not the only reason, but good grief. Story 34. Her. Alcohol and depression. Me. Thinking I could fix everything and just making it worse. We had many good years, but it was time to move on. I still love her and wish her the best, but I am happier alone. Story 35. The relationship was always one-sided. Even after trying, I understood that some people are not as engaged as others. My love language was quality time, and unfortunately, it was not the same for the other party. Story 36. He became abusive after we had children and then became an addict in the last 2 years. Our children and I have had no contact with him in 3 years, and our divorce was finalized a few weeks ago. Story 37. Married 25 years. He entered his midlife crisis 2 years ago and acted out in aggression and anger against me and our child because he could not reconcile his own issues. Story 38. He changed from treating me like a treasure to finding me despicable. He started verbally abusing me the day we brought our daughter home from the hospital. He struggled increasingly with shopping addiction and hoarding. I had a chronic illness for 3 years. He encouraged me to get a car but never got a license to drive it. I would get out of bed to dress our child and beg him to take her anywhere on weekends. I was working to pay $1,000 per paycheck on the credit card debt he was accumulating and sleeping, too sick to do anything else. He refused to get help, therapy, or support as a caretaker of an ill person. His unhealthy cooking contributed to me being hospitalized twice in 2024, and he refused to visit me in the hospital. I had to beg. He started to tell me my family did not care about him and that I was the only one he had. We began to live in squalor, and he began to hoard food that rotted in the fridge. I lived in denial and pretended I was okay. I was too sick to clean or do laundry and scared to ask him. I developed serious gastrointestinal issues and started starving. Work made me take medical leave. I was hospitalized for severe gastrointestinal problems and malnutrition in the intensive care unit for 4 days near death. He visited me once and asked my mother to come. She saw the living situation, cried, and for the first time I complained about one single thing he did to someone outside the marriage. It all came out, and within 4 days, I had left with my daughter. We lived in an Airbnb and then got a rental. He is still living in the home we own. After trying mediation for 6 months, I am having him served with papers this week in a contested divorce. I am no longer offering alimony. It turns out he had another $45,000 of debt I never knew about for 7 years. I think he was disappointed I did not die. He prays I will die. But the joke is on him because since I left, I am thriving, in better shape, more beautiful, and happier than maybe I have ever been in my life. I have hope. He can be angry, but I don't really care because I am too busy feeling great. Story 39. The marriage falling apart was the fault of both of us. Neither of us was truly working on it. My response was to ignore the problem, and his response was to be unfaithful. Story 40. I got taken for granted. When I realized I was doing the dishes, laundry, managing kids, and work, her not wanting to do anything intimate became a secondary problem. I wanted out. We are okay friends now. We can talk about the kids and meet on birthdays. Story 41. Her spending was unbelievable. We dated. She helped pay for things for 4 years. We got married. Then she had access to my account. We both had just started working. My mom used to handle the household finances, so it was not wrong for her to have access in case she needed it for the house. But she would blow through money like nothing. I would check my balance and half of the money would be gone. I would talk to her and she gave one excuse after another. Then we had a child, and everything fell apart. She would rack up debt and then dump it on me, saying it was for the kids. I paid for everything: house, cars, insurance, etc. She only had to pay for food. My resentment towards her was deep. She hated me because I tried to stop her spending. We could have had a second house, but she just couldn't help herself. Story 42. Husband decided his penis was more important than anything else and broke up our family so he could be unfaithful. Story 43. Ultimately, we wanted different things. She wanted not to work but still be able to buy and have all the nice things, whereas I wanted a simpler life where I could finally relax a little and go on a couple of reasonable vacations each year. These competing desires led me to work 2 jobs to afford all of her wants and to fund a couple of major home renovations. She did not want to work, so she wanted to flip houses to make extra money while she kept losing or switching jobs. More than 10 jobs in 10 years, trying to find an easy way out. Ultimately, she got what she wanted since she is now remarried and does not work, and I got what I wanted since I now live my simple life, work 1 job, am able to save for early retirement and go on many fun trips. Life is much better after the divorce, and honestly, it should have happened a few years sooner. Story 44. There were many issues. An absence of emotional availability on her part, me noticing I looked for reasons to delay going home, and her older brother living with us for the entirety of our relationship despite my repeated requests for him to leave. But what regularly comes back to me is that every time I described any challenge I was facing to her, such as difficulties at work or family disagreements, she was always on the side of the other party. She never saw my side. Never. This is not an exaggeration. She acknowledged it herself and embraced it with pride. She saw it as a way of being intellectually challenging. I am remarried now to someone truly wonderful and supportive. We do not always agree on everything, and we do not have to, but we always have each other's back. Story 45. My husband of more than 20 years was not only seeing random women for sex but also paying sex workers to ejaculate inside them. He said he found them on an online forum. Story 46. Not me, but my friend. His wife started having feelings for her boss. The boss was kicked out of his home by his wife, who wasn't happy about the emotional affair. The boss ended up on my friend's couch without his consent. My friend was moved onto a cot in their spare room to give his wife time and space to sort out her feelings. She refused marriage counseling. Instead, she insisted that they could make things work by becoming a polygamous couple, a throuple. My friend loved his wife and didn't want to disrupt their children's lives, so he agreed to try. Seeing another man with his wife devastated him. Story 47. I did not feel loved. I begged him to show me he loved me more than just when he wanted intimacy. Then I found out he voted for Donald Trump, and I decided our morals were too different, so I chose to leave. Story 48. Abuse, both physical and emotional, was directed against me, including the misuse of pain medication I needed while waiting for surgery. I finally realized his lies were just that and made a break. Story 49. I attempted to take my own life and received the help I needed. While I was undergoing outpatient treatment and starting my medication for bipolar disorder, my husband of 10 years began an affair with his coworker. My medication made me feel numb. I couldn't go out and drink with friends anymore and followed a strict schedule set by my doctors. My husband said I was no longer fun. I tried marriage counseling, but after one session, I realized the marriage couldn't be saved because he wanted to be with his coworker. Story 50. My ex-husband is gay, and I finally got tired of him lying to both of us. He is now in a relationship with a man. Story 51. We became more friends than lovers, and he eventually had an affair, which clearly drew a line in the sand. We both accepted some blame in the situation, and the divorce, although painful, was relatively amicable. It did give me significant trust issues, though. Story 52. We both got married to take care of the children we had at an early age. I caught her cheating after 10 years, even though she was very religious and we had promised we would never do that to each other. I could not look at her the same way again and could not get past it. It was always there. She waited to tell me after the divorce that she never truly loved me. It upset me for quite a while. Story 53. He absolutely and steadfastly refused to work on himself, using intentional incompetence to avoid housework. Picked faults in the way I sipped a cup of tea, and as soon as I left, I blossomed. He is still angry with me 10 years later while I live my best life. Story 54. For my parents, my mother became disabled, and my father was not supportive or helpful at all. She had a severe brain injury, and he did absolutely nothing except yell at her when she could not do the things she used to be able to do. She literally lost the ability to write and count, and he would get angry that she was not able to make lists for him or remember dates. I remember being furious with him and not at all surprised when she was finally able to leave him. Story 55. She said she wanted to have her cake and eat it too. In other words, to cash out over half of everything I provided, discard me, and be with other men. Story 56. We were never married, but in a long-term committed relationship for 10 years. She was a narcissist, and I finally woke up. Story 57. We drifted too far apart and became roommates who slept in the same bed. After 2 years of a dead bedroom and feeling very unwanted and depressed, I handed him the rings, told him I had transferred my job, and that I was leaving. Then I left. Story 58. So many things happened. We both contributed. We had developed a sexless marriage. I resorted to pornography, which escalated to online affairs outside of my marriage. When she found out, she asked me to take a sexually transmitted infection test. I was clean. I was confident I would be because I hadn't slept with anybody and hadn't had sex in almost a year. After my clean test, I asked her to take a sexually transmitted infection test. She was not clean. She became absolutely obsessed with the idea that I had to be having affairs or sleeping with random people. She constantly searched my phone. Fair, given what I was doing online. Tried to ban me from having a relationship with my brother, and made me produce receipts for every penny. Everything I did was called gaslighting and narcissistic. We both contributed to reaching that point. Story 59. He was an alcoholic and I was having an affair. We are amazing co-parents now and have the best friendship. Story 60. 25 years and we had different views of our later years. We talked about travel and adventure when the kids were grown. He changed his mind. He wanted to sit on the couch, hold hands, and watch The Simpsons. No. Story 61. Speaking for my mother since she does not have Reddit, my father was an alcoholic and extremely jealous, narcissistic, manipulative person. Not much has changed, sadly. It is very hard to have a relationship with my father. Deep down, there is a part of him that is a good person. I see photos of him with us as children and think, what happened? Story 62. The longer the relationship lasted, the more abusive he became. He was also diagnosed with a mental illness and often refused treatment. He could not hold down a job and had a hard time maintaining friendships. I put everything I had into protecting him and helping him appear normal to the world until there was nothing left of me. I had to leave to save myself, and I am doing much better 5 years later. Story 63. In a nutshell, we grew apart. We both made mistakes, but she was demanding and, in some ways, a bit of a bully. I put up with it for a very long time. When I stopped, it unraveled rapidly. We were married for 17 years. In hindsight, I should have either not married her or left after about 3 years. My life is far better now. I am married to someone who truly loves and respects me. Story 64. Slight foundational problems in our relationship turned out to be big problems after almost 20 years. You get into patterns with people, and if you keep reinforcing non-optimal behaviors, you both end up in a place you do not want to be. The good news is that after the divorce, we have a great, healthy, and respectful relationship, which is excellent for the children we are co-parenting for another decade. Story 65. We were both unhappy, but I kept slogging away doing what I thought was the right thing to do. Cook meals, mow lawns, and so on, when what she really wanted was more emotional connection. I couldn't give that to her because I was too busy cooking meals and mowing lawns, while she had slipped into being my boss, complaining about the quality of the meals and the lawn rather than being a partner. The cooking and lawns are just examples. I was basically focused on all the practical rather than the emotional. She was unhappy and just complained about what I did as a symptom of that. We had slipped into these roles over a number of years, and only in hindsight can I see where things went wrong. So we both weren't getting what we needed from each other. She initiated the divorce, and in hindsight it was the right thing to do because I was just invested in keeping the marriage going until death do us part and couldn't see what the big deal with her was. If it had been up to me, we'd have been married until one of us died of old age. While I'm not over the moon about life at the moment, there are no instances of confused anger and despair like in the old days, so I'm now content with my lot in life. I also rent a place that doesn't have a lawn, so that's a bonus. Story 66. It seems like many people just settle. This is who you are going to spend the rest of your life with. Story 67. Undiagnosed borderline personality disorder combined with poorly medicated attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Recently diagnosed autism spectrum disorder, and lifelong affluenza caused him to never work a full-time job, fail multiple educational programs, and treat me poorly. His alcoholism led to end-stage liver failure. He accused me of not truly loving him, trying to control him, and being selfish just like my father while I was doing my best as his caretaker. He also yelled at and scared our dogs during the argument that was the last straw. I took the dogs and moved in with my parents for a while. For 8 weeks, he refused to admit any wrongdoing and would not see a therapist. Thank God. If he had a moment of clarity and pulled me back in, I would have taken even longer to leave. Story 68. The reason we lasted 20 years before divorcing was a combination of determination, stubbornness, and denial. I refused to leave and accepted the physical, emotional, and verbal abuse by internalizing it and telling myself that I could be better, and that my children deserved an intact family with a mother and a father. She finally filed for divorce, and it upset me that I had endured so long while she was the one giving up. Going through the divorce was extremely difficult, but once it was over and I was able to imagine a life without her, the relief felt like the best gift I had ever received. Story 69. Infidelity on both sides. Over 20 years of third-shift work. 2 significant drinking problems on each of our plates. Yes, that about covers it. Story 70. I was no longer a priority. I acted out and cheated on her, sadly more than once. She wanted to stay married, but I did not put in the effort, and she divorced me. Story 71. Not me, but a friend whose wedding I attended. After several years together, the wife took swapping gender roles to the next level, and the husband was not able to continue the relationship. Story 72. I married my high school sweetheart. We were together for a total of 15 years. I divorced her after she became an alcoholic, started using LSD, and had an affair with a 60-year-old man who lived across the street. I have no regrets because I have 2 wonderful children from that marriage, and the first 13 years were actually very good. We do not talk these days, but we are cordial when we see each other at family events. Story 73. Severe mental health issues affected my spouse. I am not sure if it was the medication, the illness itself, my own slide into burnout, or a combination of everything. After 15 years, we ended our marriage because we were not the right people for one another. I will never regret marrying them, but I would never have married the person they eventually became. Selfish, harmful, arrogant, and unpleasant. Story 74. I'm not sure if she was avoidant, a narcissist, both, or something else, but she gave me less than the bare minimum while seeking attention from other men on social media. It made me anxious, and I reacted badly to her behavior. Crazy making is how it was described to me, and it's an apt description. Contradictions, sabotage, reactionary abuse, criticism, public disrespect. For 8 years of our 10-year marriage, this is how she treated me, while sleeping in a different room the entire time. When I wanted to talk about it, her response was, "That's why we're not a match and we should break up." There was no discussion that didn't end this way. In the end, she told me she wanted to leave, so after trying to get her to talk, work with me, or go to counseling with me with no luck, I left. As soon as I did, the story flipped, and the whole divorce was framed as something I did to her, not the other way around. I'm glad that chapter is over. Looking back, with the help of therapy, I've been able to see what I went through in a new way and realize that the person I loved never really existed. I'm still deeply affected by it, and I'm not relationship material right now, but the calm and peace are amazing. Story 75. She came from a family of addicts and was always a heavy drinker. But I had rose-colored glasses and thought if only I could fix her. She did okay controlling it when our children were little, but it spiraled into a driving under the influence, a 30-day trip to rehabilitation, falling off the wagon, falling down the stairs and shattering a leg, then another 30-day trip to rehabilitation before we called it quits. Thank God she is now over 5 years sober for our children's sake. Story 76. My ex-wife had an unchecked hormone imbalance that she refused to address. This caused her anxiety to get out of control, led to depression symptoms, killed her libido, and resulted in chronic fatigue. All of this was likely worsened by her use of anti-anxiety and antidepressant medications. She stopped exercising, started binge eating, gained over 100 pounds, and became morbidly obese. This led to multiple health issues that she believed were unavoidable and unrelated to her obesity. Instead of losing weight, she treated her problems with more prescription medications. Her doctor was unhelpful. We were married for 16 years. Between years 9 and 14, she decreased the frequency of sex to once or twice a year, and in the last 2 years, there was no sexual activity at all. She filed for divorce because she felt trapped in a dead-end marriage, believing I worked too much and did not care to be at home. She felt uncared for and became consumed by anxiety and depression. That was 3 years ago. The irony came a year ago when she finally got her hormone levels checked, revealing significant imbalances, especially in progesterone and testosterone. She remained friends with my mother, who had undergone hormone replacement therapy, and convinced her to see a specialist. The doctor prescribed hormone replacement therapy and semaglutide. Within 4 months, she lost 30 pounds, regained energy, mental clarity, and experienced a reduction in anxiety for the first time in over a decade. Essentially, she finally did what I had been advising for years. She admitted to my mother that she should have listened to me years ago and regretted not doing so. Unfortunately, some women refuse to listen to their husbands or boyfriends out of defiance and dislike being told what to do. I have been on testosterone replacement therapy since 2013, so I am familiar with these issues. However, I could not communicate with her during our marriage, so it is uncertain if anything would have been different. Story 77. She was an abusive, narcissistic person. However, she was also attractive and a master manipulator, so it took me about 10 years to realize what I was really in, and another year or two to actually leave. Story 78. She was narcissistic. Even after 3 years of marriage counseling, she refused to change or see anything from my point of view. She was emotionally abusive and made me feel worthless, as if it was all my fault. The last straw was when she stayed out all night at a CrossFit party and did not respond to any texts or calls. I was close to calling the missing persons line. Again, apparently that was my fault. I found out later that she had cheated on me at the CrossFit event and probably many times during the 10-year marriage. I was accused several times of being unfaithful. I kind of wish I had been. Story 79. Aside from the infidelity, I learned that they were drugging and raping me in my sleep, recording it and posting the videos on social media. Story 80. I was not mature enough to control myself when a much younger blonde woman showed interest in me. I recognized that my ex was suffering from postpartum depression, but it was not well understood in the late 1980s. With nothing happening at home, I went away. When my conscience caught up with me, I ended the affair, which led to my side relationship confronting my wife. Story 81. If it is like my parents, they knew each other for 10 years, then were married for 12 years. My parents are still extremely close, but there is no spark anymore. My father told me there comes a day when you realize there is no more love or companionship. However, you simply continue the relationship because you do not have the courage to end things and break the family apart. I assume the spark sort of fizzled out. They knew every little thing about each other. Nothing was new. Their habits were the same. They simply grew tired of each other. They waited until we were adults for things to end. Now that I think about it, I wish it had ended sooner. By the time I was 15, I could see my mother just enduring the relationship. I see this often with other couples as well. They are just in it but do not want to end it, either for the sake of others or out of fear of what would happen next. Story 82. I've been waiting for a time to write my story. I don't know why I chose this thread specifically. We didn't marry young, we were in our mid-20s. We decided early that we weren't going to have children. She had no hobbies or interests except video games, cooking, and traveling extravagantly. Everything else seemed to make any money spent on ourselves. Any money I spent on hobbies or maintenance like cars and house stuff looked like I wasn't contributing to a financially free future. She refused to spend money on herself except for food delivery and the vacations mentioned above. I built an entire career around supporting us, making good money. We were fast-tracking out of debt. She was extremely unhappy with her current education field in mortuary sciences, which will always be a concern for me now, and with her lack of career progress. She was working a low-income job outside her field, and I heavily encouraged her to join my career field. I gave lots of help and encouragement, and she gained traction. She earned certifications, and I helped her find well-paying jobs with good learning opportunities. We were making good money, yet she still felt we weren't on track to financial freedom. I guess she thought we were one disaster away from homelessness and complete financial failure. I smoked a lot of cannabis during this time and used some extra cash for that habit. Every time we built up savings, something would empty it: taxes, medical bills, vacations. Yet, we never missed a payment, always had extra insurance, and ensured we had plenty of financial safety nets in place. We would never be without. My longtime best friend, who followed in my career footsteps, eventually helped her get a remote job. She never discussed the details with me. I came home after her interview, and she had already negotiated her salary without telling me. She said, based on her experience level and best friend's advice, he recommended asking for a certain amount, which just happened to be the bottom range of the position's salary scale. Who asks for the bottom number on a salary range? Who doesn't talk about income with their spouse? This was the beginning of the emotional disconnect. I don't know how long the actual emotional part of the affair lasted, but that's when I began to notice. I felt frozen, completely drowning, watching my life choice not choose me. The affair partner's spouse reached out to me and said she had been nervous and suspicious of their interactions for years. I started by giving the benefit of the doubt. He is my best friend. She's my wife. I can't handle the thought of anything happening beyond a platonic relationship. Months of emotional disconnect followed. I feel that we were only held together by a huge extravagant vacation involving both our families. If I thought the emotional hell was bad before the vacation, I was in for a rude awakening. The disconnect became cold very quickly after we returned. We eventually had a discussion and decided to plan to spend time apart. Up to that point, I was ignorant, or chose to be, of the fact that this separation was influenced by something else. I played the game as if it was just our time. Funnily enough, our intimacy during this time exploded in a good way. We were intimate multiple times a day during our separation period. During the unentanglement of finances, I finally found something concrete to bring to her attention. Over 1,800 text messages in 2 days and more than $10,000 in 1 month to one specific number, his. I confronted her, and she admitted to cheating but said it only happened after we had decided to split. The thing is, she built her entire identity around taking months, if not years, to cultivate intimate relationships. So her story and views did not add up. Her excuses included, "You don't think I'm sexy? Your eyes light up when other people enter the room. You don't value money? We tried everything. You told best friend about your apprehensions about marrying me. And I wanted my cake and to eat it too. How cliché it all was, and how cliché that it was all projection. I raised my voice once during this. Otherwise, it was an intense conversation. Up to that point, I had never put her down, called her names, or disrespected her. But she deserved every syllable of the forget you. Spouse, I delivered calmly as I walked out the door. She turned heavily to a human resources approach immediately after. No more discussing anything except separating finances. I spent years trying to be better for her, for us. I was never violent, rude, or discouraging to her. I only wanted the best for her. I went to therapy, was properly medicated, built friendships, hobbies, and interests that she outright refused to participate in. I built a career. We bought a house that I worked hard to make a comfortable nest. I organized the house, decorated it, and equipped it with technology. She had one 4-foot section of wall with some family photos. Otherwise, I was the one putting effort into it. I often felt like I was the only one putting effort into us. The divorce is not finalized yet due to some back and forth regarding the equity in the house. It has been just over a year since our separation discussion, but not yet a year since Discovery Day. When the day comes to finally sign the papers, people tell me I will be ecstatic, relieved, and feel a sense of freedom I have not experienced in over a decade. I truly still don't know how I'll feel, but I know I will be emotionally overwhelmed. I was devastated. Since then, I have had moments of hope, glimpses that I will be much happier. I know I will be happier. Story 83. I found out he took out second and third mortgages on our house, opened multiple credit cards in my name without my knowledge, and our cars were repossessed. 2 different cars within 8 years. Our house had gone into foreclosure twice before his sister rescued him and brought the mortgage payments and taxes up to date. I auto-deposited my paycheck from my $80,000 job, and he said he was making payments on my student loan. He was not. He had not paid my loan in over a year. The final straw was when he borrowed money from our 80-year-old neighbor, gave him the runaround for months, and did not pay him back. The neighbor called me, begging for his money. The wall of cards began to tumble, and I found out our neighbor was not the only person he borrowed from. I divorced him soon afterward. He did not gamble, did not drink, or use drugs. He earned over $100,000 a year in the early 1990s, but he never had money. Nobody could figure out where he spent his money, only that it was typically gone 2 days after payday. I suspect he was playing the stock market or it was playing him. He died of cardiac arrest, and there were no records, receipts, or evidence of where hundreds of thousands of dollars were spent. Story 84. My father had a stroke when he was 56 and I was 31. As a result, he was paralyzed on his left side and became disinhibited. It took about 2 years for the extent and permanence of his condition to become clear. During that period, I was not able to give my husband the attention he needed. In fact, I needed support. Because he could not provide it, I withdrew. We did not separate for another 4 or 5 years, and in the meantime, I acted out a lot. The immediate cause of our divorce was his falling in love with someone else. My father died 16 years after his stroke. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.